Welcome
Hey,
to the Habitual Thinker.
Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming. I can go down and list like some of the things I know about your professional career. I won't do it justice, so I'm just gonna kick it off to you and let you just list off your accolades, what you're doing now, and just tell me all about, your therapy journey.
Yeah. Well, I know that we met in the beginning of my therapy journey. So I
Okay.
started my practice about 2013 independently. Um, and I started out just doing therapy. And then honestly, I got bored and I wanted to incorporate something else within the practice. So I started looking around the community, looking at the business landscape. What does the community need? And the first thing I added into the practice alongside therapy was therapeutic mentoring. Remember those therapeutic mentors?
Mm-hmm.
So my company used to
Because you had to go and find people to help.
We would go get the youth and hang out with them and just try to give them that big sister, big brother, big sibling relationship, because these were disadvantaged youths that were already probably taken out of their home, taken out of their community, and really just lacked resources. So I started therapeutic mentoring. Once I was exposed to those youth, I needed more. So then I created a clinical after-school program. So I had mental health therapy, therapeutic services like mentoring, and then I created a clinical after-school program and wrapped that around with therapy and transportation. So, mental health is the core of what we do. But I think that when you're trying to help a community, you got to look at what the community needs. I'm coming to realize that your dreams have to align with what the community need. A lot of us, we have these dreams about how to help and how to help from our hearts, from our own personal journeys. But it took me a minute to realize, like, we have to do market strategy in mental health like any other business. And so I had to merge my dream with what the community needs. And that's when everything really started to synergize. But, I'm in my 10th year now.
10 years.
10.
So let's take it back really quickly, because I'm always curious to know, like, what, I guess, triggered someone along their journey of whatever, career path they may be on. So for you, at what point did you realize this is something that I want to do? Right? Was it when you were a child? Is it something that happened in life? Like, I want to do this. Like, what was that for you?
Looking back, I think it was a little bit in my nature. I'm Jamaican, and I come from, poverty, violence.
You were born in Jamaica?
I was born in Jamaica, in St. Elizabeth. I came to America when I was like 5 years old.
Okay.
And I distinctly remember coming to America, like on the plane, coming down into LaGuardia. And I remember looking at my mom and saying, "This is America?" And she was like, "Yes." I said, "I could be anything I want to be." And she said, "Yes." Baby, nobody can stop me after that. Word. Because look where I'm coming from and look what my mother installed in me. So back up a little bit. I went from Jamaica to Brooklyn. So I really went from, the environments were kind of the same to me. And what I noticed was I was a child that was parentified. I'm the oldest of 5. So I was an adult while I was a child. And
Explain that. What do you mean?
So when you're parentified in the Jamaican culture, you're like a second mom, especially if you're like the eldest child. Like, all the children are your responsibility. Cleaning. Even if you can't cook, the parents will figure that out. But you become responsible. So, for example, my mom wasn't an American citizen for a long time. She was going to Long Island College and all these things, but she worked. And she worked hard, and she would have to leave us at home for several days at a time to be a in-home nurse. No, in-home health aide. So Thursday to Sunday, my mom will be gone. But
you were the one that
I was mom.
In charge.
And my mom, she left everything we needed. There was food packed in the fridge. We had rules. We had understandings. If she called 3 times and hung up that phone, that's mom, because we didn't have caller ID.
Yeah,
and all
yeah. So
that
y'all
back
had to
in the
have
day.
like a little code to know.
Exactly. And in that, I had to create fun for my siblings. That's boring, being stuck in the projects. We looking out the window and all, that was a part of our entertainment too, looking out the window and seeing all these windows, all these different lives, watching the block, watching the people sing, fight, just everything. And I think I've always found myself trying to calm people down, like, no, I don't want to fight. Let's talk about it. Or, like, why are we fighting? Why?
So you be in the middle, like,
Yes.
let's
Yes.
think about this.
They usually thought I was a punk for acting like that. You know how that works. You end up becoming a fighter yourself. But that's where it came from. Even watching my family struggle. My grandmother had 14 kids.
Wow.
So
they didn't have TV back then.
No, it was like, and 9 of them were women. So when we came to America, we was all in an apartment. It was a lot of us, a lot of the aunties and their children, and it was hectic. It was definitely hectic. But I was always the person seeing beyond the pain, like dreaming bigger than this and what we can be, and why can't we be kind to each other? Sometimes poverty yields anger, and it comes out in the family system and it rips you apart. You'll have cousins you don't talk to for something that happened when you were 10 years old.
Yeah, still holding on to a grudge. Yeah.
So I noticed, like, even back then, and even as I was in school, I'm in middle school, being chosen to be the mediator of fights. So the school social worker,
the actual the adults saw that in you.
They saw me already doing it on the court, or on the playground. So then when a major fight would happen with two people that they're like, these are two tough kids, what are we going to do? They'd be like, bring in Tamar.
Yeah.
Let her talk
the mediator.
to them. Yes. And that's when I first saw a Black social worker. And my mom joined the military when I was 16 to get her citizenship. And that changed my life. And I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And that was the first time I saw like a Black social worker. And I was like, I want this. She had an office. It was so cozy wozy. It was so inviting.
So you saw like a trajectory of like what this skill set that I have, what this could turn into.
Yeah, I knew I was doing her job. But I also didn't take it that way because she inspired me. She would tell me that I have a particular skill set with people. And she's the first one that said, your voice is so calming, So yeah, I was like, I want this. I want to sit in an office and I want to talk people into believing into themselves or regulating their emotion. I was also a fighter. I was a very troubled youth.
Do you were fighting? I mean, you say fighter, like picking up them dukes? Okay.
Yeah. Fighting, stealing, wilding out, cutting school. I also made straight A's. So I'd come in and test and bounce.
So you're multitasking.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel you.
So yeah, I felt like I had to control that in myself because I was in an environment that was going to eat me up if I didn't find out who I was and stick with that.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to control that in myself and better manage that in myself. And I think it's a lifestyle that I still utilize today because, we're forever growing. So
for sure.
I think it's a part of who I am.
Got it. So from that, I guess, kind of fast forward back now to like, okay, I want to actually pursue this as a career. Like what did that look like for you?
So I was in a big corporation, right? I always succeeded in big corporations. I graduated at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I immediately got a job with the government at like 18 years old.
Nice.
I was like GS9.
This is right out of high school.
Right out of high school.
Yeah.
I got GS9 position. Then I started making $80,000 by the next year, tax-free in Germany.
That is not bad at all.
As an 18-year-old.
And that's like what, I'm not trying to date how old you are, but that 80K
old.
back then isn't 80K now. That's more like 120, 130 back then.
I didn't even realize the abundance that I had.
And you weren't being taxed?
No, tax-free.
Nice.
Tax-free. Yeah. And then that's when I was a government contractor at 18 years old, and I would have to reapply for my contract each year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the sad part was what I realized once I realized the system is that I was buying out people who were in their position, very skilled at their position in their 20, 30 years, but I went lower and I had less experience, but I was creative.
Yeah.
So, those military positions, though, is what really opened me up to trauma. I saw trauma first in the military, in the U.S.
From
Army.
like soldiers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. My contracts were to help families reunite and get reacclimated back to each other. And soldiers would go into deployment and come back absolutely disconnected, shell-shocked, abusive. And it would be my job to let the Army know that we have to come up with different protocols to bring the man back into the family, bring the person back into the family. And so that's when I really first saw my firsthand trauma experiences.
Yeah.
And from that, you know, like I said, I was in Germany, and I went to Germany as a child. My mom joined the Army, and I was married. So that marriage didn't last, but I had so much rich experience from Germany that I was able to come to Connecticut and maximize. You know,
what was Germany like? Like, just from a culture standpoint, especially compared to Brooklyn and even Connecticut.
Yeah. When I was there, you know, that's when euro was like 2 to 1. A dollar gives you 2 euros.
Yeah.
The culture is beautiful. It's very separated, I would say. Like, they know we're Americans, and they seem to have a energy about that.
Like what?
Cautious, you know, cautious and slightly uninviting.
Gotcha.
You know, almost like you have to build that relationship. It didn't seem like a, you know, friendly place. But then again, culturally, they could be friendly, but the language was harsh. To receive based on my culture. You know, someone could be saying something positive, but "Was ist dein Name?" comes off a little bit more.
Like, whoa, why are you yelling at me?
You know. So there was.
What did you just say right there?
What's your name?
Oh, whoa! I thought you just said something about my mom.
Right. So for me, I would always be a little, you know, reserved. They're reserved, but I feel like we just two cultures that needed more time.
Yeah.
I'm on a concern. Can't come on without a pass and an ID, 50,000 guards. But I come into your community every day to go buy brooching.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought it was a beautiful culture. I did not see littering on the street. I did not see homelessness. I was very family oriented. I never seen people clean the streets so fast because, you know, they got the Autobahn over there. So you drive as fast as your heart desires sometimes. So they are really good about
making sure it's clean.
Yeah.
I think it's only America that we're just trashy here.
Well,
especially in New York. Especially in New York.
And that was the thing I remembered as a kid. When I landed in LaGuardia, when I got into Brooklyn, I was like, I want that smell, mommy. I want that.
Trash.
When I got to Jersey, you know, we would go there to shop.
Oh, Jersey has a smell. Like, I'm sorry for anybody that's from Jersey watching this. Jersey has a smell. You can smell them when you're driving on the turnpike.
Jersey know that Jersey got a smell.
But the people of Jersey sometimes act like they'll deny it. But
their nose a little immune. But Jersey cool too. But, you know, that's kind of the story of it.
Got it. So Germany was like a nice, I guess, not culture shock, but just a different culture to adapt to. And then you said that you came to Connecticut. Like, how was that coming back from Germany, dealing with that culture, then coming here and starting to set up shop?
I actually came back to Brooklyn.
You came right back to Brooklyn, okay.
And I immediately went to Connecticut.
Okay.
My mother owned some property out here. So while my mom, you know, she was a military soldier, that's how I ended up in Germany. She bought some property.
Smart.
But she lived in Hawaii and the property was in Connecticut.
Wait, your mom was in Germany, lived in Hawaii, and bought property in Connecticut?
Online.
Oh, okay. You can't just. We're not buying them on Amazon. We're talking about property. Like, can you please tell me a little bit more on the process? Say, click, I want this house.
Mama. You know, I think that's just someone who, my mother's an excellent a person who can save well. One tip she gave me, and I was like, baby, keep that tip. Because I don't know if I can do that. Sorry. She said, I never spent my taxes 5 years straight.
She never
tax returns
Or she never spent them.
Yeah.
So she would save her
she
tax
would
returns.
save
Gotcha.
her tax
That's smart.
returns and other little things she would do. But yeah, she wanted to get into real estate. My mother's very ambitious. Her methods might not be the best, but she gets the job done. And then she might have to go through some heartache, but in the end, it's like she did it. So she wanted to get into real estate. She didn't really have a lot of guidance. She saw the building, she researched the building, and she bought the building. Just like
sight
that.
unseen.
Unseen.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
That comes to mind.
Listen. And so the person that was managing the building, they weren't being transparent. My mom, there was a lot of hiccups. This apartment needs a whole new bathroom. Send me some money.
Yeah.
No receipts, no pictures. So at that time, I was going through my divorce and trying to figure out where is it's gonna be my new home.
Yeah.
I had that C300 Mercedes. It was not formatic. I didn't belong here in the cold and all of that.
Yeah.
I was going to go to Florida to my
You'd
dad.
be fishtailing all over the place in the wintertime.
That first year was a whirlwind. But it was really noticing my mother. She made a sacrifice, whether she did it the right way or not. She did a thing that has never been done in my family. So I went to take care of that. I came to Connecticut to see a man about my mama's house. And I came here. I lived with Laree because our mothers, and this is how Jamaican culture works. Jamaicans will know each other from states and states away. And if a family member is coming to you, they will ask you to hold them. Yeah. And so while I was waiting for my car to get here, because everything had to be shipped from Germany, I was getting my BAH, my allowance from the military. And
wait, speak up. What is that?
It's basic.
I'm not familiar with. Yeah.
So I was going through a divorce and I had a particular lifestyle. I earned my own income. So while you're going through a divorce and you have to, because you stopped everything for the military to support.
Oh, so the military has some sort of like.
So until I'm settled. So once you're trying to divorce, I think they give you maybe a year or two. And they give you an allowance based on the state that you're going to.
Gotcha. So it's probably based off of like cost of living. There's probably other factors that go into that.
My cost of living was based on New York, but I relocated to Connecticut.
Nice. Smart.
I knew that much, right? So, that's what that was. And with that, I stayed at my friend's mom's house for like 90 days. And that's how I really got connected to the community, like where to go, what kind of jobs are here, because they were definitely showing me around, telling me what to do, and things like that. I worked at a few school systems. I worked for major mental health companies. But within 2 years of being here, I was like, I can do this myself. I actually got upset. I got angry. That's what led me to start my own company.
What did you see within the system, or was it something that, you experienced that said, I don't like this, and there needs to be some sort of change, or I can do this on my own?
Yeah. Let me think. Well, I know that I felt a lot of anger, based on what I saw happen. And what did I see? I saw children leaving and coming back. I was, in a group home setting, and I would see them leave. And then within 6 months to a year, they kind of cycled back in. And so I kind of had issues with the interventions, with the treatment, with the quality of the work. But my voice wasn't really heard,
While working for.
Absolutely. Gotcha. We could be, I'm on the floor in the group home with the child, and I'm seeing them every single day. But someone higher up on another campus who has never laid eyes on this child could redirect my treatment plans, push through a treatment plan where I said, that this child is not ready. So there was things like that I was like, my body couldn't stomach it. I was getting sick from my lack of alignment with the company's process. Literally sick.
Really?
Because I'm building these relationships, and if I'm working with the child and I could see that this child is not ready, I don't care how perfect the reports coming out of their mouth, I could see it. then you sending that child out and them cycling back in 6 months, that's going to have an impact on what I do and why I do it. So I started, thinking about what am I going to do? Like, you could be angry all you want, but what are you going to do about it?
Did you feel like you were, like, if you were making a voice about it, or if you were making a stink about it, nothing was happening?
Yeah, I was making a voice about it. I was often called into the office because of how vocal I was. And that didn't help, because that just put us in a deeper dialogue, and you'd walk out of there second guessing, but they still wouldn't do the right thing. So, for example, I practice a therapy where I need absolute privacy. I cannot share an office with another therapist and practice EMDR. So you're holding some buzzies in your hand and I'm guiding you through a past memory. And I'm sharing office with Lucy, who doesn't practice that. So it would be...
Maybe it's a little bit of a distraction.
Yeah, just kind of advocating for the importance of having my own space, or having a office that we have to take turns in. And, they just want to move these clients through. Whereas I wanted to take my time. I wanted to be more mindful about the treatment. And so those were the things where I couldn't handle it.
So I want to, like, just something you said just kind of reminded me of other similar situations I've had, even with my own family. Like that, I had a sister, and she rest in peace, that worked. She was a doctor, and she was more of a naturopathic type of doctor. She always ran into like, well, that's not how we do things here, right? But the result is we're trying to do the best for our patient, right? So it seems like you had an idea of like, okay, this is going to be the best for the patient, but there's maybe the politics or the business side of the organization you're working for that's not in alignment. Why do you think that is?
Because they're focused on the different goals. I think sometimes it's a hard line to walk when you're thinking about business success and integrity. And I think it takes a particular kind of leader to walk that path with integrity, I think. So, I mean, honestly, the fast answer is financial gain. Why would you want to move people in and out of a system so fast? Like, that's the fast answer. And that wasn't a good answer for me. So, the thing that they would do is, like, they would write a grant, distribute the grant to us, and say, read it. And I would be one of those people who would read it. And I would recognize, well, we're not doing that. This is an absolutely excellent write-up. Where is this program? And so I couldn't handle things like that. So this is when I knew I was, they say a therapist doesn't make a good business person. We didn't go to school for that. We have huge hearts. We're creatives. When it comes to the business piece, I had to learn everything by trial and error. I had to pick up every accelerator program for entrepreneurs that you could think of in my community and surrounding communities. So it absolutely is not an easy thing. But I knew that I could do it when I wrote a proposal to the company of my own exit plan and how I was going to support them for 90 days and onboard their new therapist and all the things they were going to pay for while I did this. And they accepted it at like 90%. They're like, awesome. Tamar, you can't have a cell phone. You can't, have this. But I was audacious in my write-up. So for them to take 90% of it, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to do contracts with you. And so when I left that company gave me a lot of strength. I did a lot of great work. I think a part of me was birthed there. I went right back to them, and they became one of my biggest buyers of my therapeutic services. They referred their children to me, and they're 500 times my size. So I think that's also the.
That means you must have did something right then.
Oh yeah, people would come into that company looking for me. I'd be the girl in the hood on Martin Street, out here with the troubled youth. Like, come on, with the Mercedes, in the middle of the hood, chasing down children. And the community supported me. So they would take, and this also pissed me off. Be a urban youth. And because I am an urban therapist, you would automatically give me all the black children because perhaps my counterpart was frightened by their presentation.
Yeah.
Stuff like that hurt my heart, because that means the leadership has already labeled and enabled.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm like, I could go into the ghetto by myself. I don't need to be working for so-and-so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's impactful. I mean, obviously, that's a tough thing to go from, like, okay, well, I wanted to do this. I found some success. I found a company to work for. It didn't pan out to what I thought it was going to be from maybe an ethical or like integrity standpoint. A lot of people will say, well, I'm just going to keep doing this because I'm getting paid, right? And then you took the route of, well, I'm going to just go the hard route and create my own business. Talk to me about like what that mindset was like. What were those feelings like to jump out on a limb there and like really just bet on yourself?
I didn't have no plan for it. I told you I got pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
I got so pissed for the children.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that sometimes that's kind of what you need. You need fire.
Yeah.
You need anger. It was the scariest thing I ever done. But I always felt like I'm doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
I dream the things that I do, and then they come to life. So sometimes I see the dream, even though I'm going through the pain. And I think as long as I keep dreaming and using my real life as a learning board and not devastation, I think that's what allows me to be so resilient. 10 years is a long time in my book. I've failed and succeeded several times to get where I am today. And my company has changed the services several times following the landscape. Right now, what we provide is mental health counseling, corporate wellness, and we're launching a virtual membership for working professionals. And corporate wellness was birthed out of me being burnt out as a therapist. It just wasn't enough. I wanted to reach more than one person in that hour. I wanted to reach a group of leaders that could shift. And so I was like, there's so much arrested development in corporate. There's so many people struggling with trauma, egos, childhood things that are now manifested into their corporate positions.
And if they're in a leadership position and they're passing that down on to...
yeah, high turnover rate, low attraction, a lot of, you get sued because leaders are not being held accountable. And sometimes we have great leaders with trauma unresolved, and that really turns them into a toxic leader. So what I love doing now is going into corporate settings and utilizing mental health and mind-body strategies to help people relax and heal from trauma, stress, and anxiety.
Yeah.
And I still see the kids mentally. I can look at an adult.
But you see the kid in them.
I see the child. I see the young person, and they love it. Corporations love it. I don't think a lot of corporations are, open to it or understand the ROI of wellness, but the ones that do, they get it. Wellness is like an inextractable part of business success. And so I feel more alive doing that now. And I just train a team of high performing therapists. My therapists are octopuses. They don't just do therapy. They're sound healers. They're facilitators. They're yoga instructors. They're fitness coaches, because we realize that we need a smorgasbord of tools to help human design. And so that's how I brand myself. We are absolutely unique and untraditional because the human design is so unique.
So what does that look like from, like, I guess, when you're trying to present your services to a corporation that, well, obviously there's going to be some that are on board, right? They may have even a budget set aside for it, and they know they need some of this, but there's probably, as I would maybe guess, the majority of them don't even think they need the service or even know about it. Like, how do you, like, per se, sell that to them? Like, this is what we provide, and this is how we'll impact your organization if you hire us.
Usually the people I work with, they already have the desire.
Okay.
I only come in and kind of amplify the reality of what they need. But if I did have someone inside of me, I'd go right to their pain points. The common problem in corporation is there's a people problem. There's a cultural disconnect. There is ego, there is bias. So I usually go right to the pain points. I go to your retention rate. I go, if I surveyed your workforce and I asked them these type of questions, what would they say? If I really wanted to get in there, I'd focus on the leader. I'd focus on what type of leader are you and where are your shortcomings? How would you like to see your workforce grow progressively? And from that, and I think that's the clinical stuff.
Yeah.
I'm also trained in meditation, mindfulness, sound healing, yoga, breath work. So I think there's something that happens when I talk to people. I'm able to kind of feel into you and use that as a part of my marketing tool. I can have certain conversations and see in your eye, that's a pain point. You're not really telling me about it. So let me go a little further on that.
Well, they may not know.
Right.
Essentially what you're doing. I mean that's sales. You don't really realize it, but that's what we do as sales. It's a lot of that. It's literally finding a pain point.
It is.
Once I find a pain point, then I can recommend a solution. Right. I always look at sales. We're problem solvers. If you know your pain point, that's helpful. That we can present a solution. But a lot of the times you don't know that you have a problem, which is, I would assume, the same in therapy. Like people are like, I'm fine, right? Until you start talking to them, and like, wow, I have all this unresolved stuff going on in here, and you've highlighted it. And now once you've highlighted it, you're able to fix it, because you can't fix what you don't identify.
This is true.
If you look at everything else as the problem, like, oh, it's me. I got to do something.
That's
and then
the hardest thing
change.
for people to own. It seems like people don't reflect. We move forward. And I think it's so important for your own personal development for you to be able to sit back and reflect on a day, a moment, what your body is feeling versus what your brain is telling you to do. Because I think it's the lack of reflection that allows us to harbor so much pain and trauma and resentment inside.
I think it's our culture.
We
live in a fast pace. It's go all the time. We're moving, and we don't get really a chance or time to as I wouldn't like to say old people now, because I'm getting old. As a seasoned people would say, stop and smell the flowers. Yeah. Right. And when you're able to do that, then you can kind of step away from the busyness of your life, and then actually think about what it is that you're doing, what it is you want, what are your goals, what are your aspirations. Just pull back, and we don't do that a lot. For me, 2020 was a time where everybody had to do it.
And that's why I made the virtual wellness community, because I feel like working professionals, we forget about us. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in corporate, whether you're working at home taking care of those kids, we will lose ourselves in the things. And I think having wellness at the tip of your fingertips, birthed from the pandemic. But I don't think it should be something that ever goes away. And I do think in person is where the greatest value can be. But you're absolutely still getting a value by logging on to a live and dynamic mindfulness teacher that can teach you how to settle into your body after a busy day before you transition to the children. Yeah. Or a dynamic fitness trainer who's going to come on and work you out at 7 p.m. because you just got off work and you got to get home before dinner and you cannot make it to the gym. And now I'm in a funk. Yeah. Because how can I show up for my family? I just transitioned from work to home. Log on. Yeah. And my instructors are dynamic. They are people person. They're master facilitators. Nothing boring happening on there. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to kind of launch that. Then it's April 2024.
Okay. So it's coming very soon.
Yeah.